Surrounded, a game that answers the question, what if Unturned was low poly, had cooler bosses and locations, and let you cosplay as a keyboard warrior? And for just $12, you're not going to find a more enjoyable weekend killer. In the past, I've 100%ed the game on permadeath mode, survived 100 days in the permadeath mode, and even tried to survive the game's nightmare mode. But today, we're doing something different. Today, we're starting with nothing. No clothes, no knife, no money, absolutely no loot of any kind, and through the power of sheer RNG, we'll go from this turd stain to, whatever this is. One more thing to add, I'm not going to use or loot any of the airdrops since I find them to be a bit too lucrative, which would kind of throw off the grind of this challenge. I also have an ad segment with ExpressVPN at this timestamp, so, be on the lookout for that. Alright, let's get to it. First things first, we need a character. Meet Scott Malkinson, a daywalker with diabetes. Upon spawning in, the first thing I did was scrape everything off Scott Malkinson's body. The most important part of this is simply the fact that, without a melee weapon, I physically can't fight. There's no Falco punching zombies to death, you can only shove. What I'm trying to say is, I'm about as threatening as you'd expect a diabetic ginger to be, which is to say, not at all. Toddlers from Yemen are more lethal than this man. But don't worry, because all of that's about to change. Maybe. I mean, probably. I don't know, onto the looting. I spawned next to a few houses, so all I could do was stealth walk my way over while praying I didn't draw the attention of any sprinters in the area. It wasn't the sprinters I should have been worried about, though. After looting a can of food from the kitchen, I examined a pile of trash to find all of this stuff. Unfortunately, while in the process of looting, I'd been spotted, and in a game like Surroundead, it only takes one hit to cause a bleed, and without any bandages, all that was left to do was frantically try to rip up clothing, only to bleed out in the process. Alright, let's try that again. This time, I spawned next to a flipped over bus. There's a trail nearby that I plan to follow, only to hear gunshots erupt in the distance. It turns out, I'd spawned next to a friendly scavenger, currently in the process of gunning down a few nearby zombies, which I was able to loot for a bottle of water, a lockpick, and some other junk. I kited the sprinter over into his buddy, which netted me a crowbar, meaning at least now I can fight back. Using said crowbar, I killed my first zombie of the playthrough before heading inside to loot the Lone Cottage POI. With the pants providing a bit more storage space, I scooped up a flashlight and ripped all the other clothes for extra cloth, which I then used to craft 2 more bandages. Aside from the loot I got from this place, there's one other big plus of finding the Lone Cottage. I can use the POI marker on the map to find my exact location. See, in Surrounded, if you don't have a GPS, you can't see your location on the map. But when you first discover a new location or POI, it'll populate on your map as a white icon. This is huge because obviously when you're first starting out, you don't have any of the map marked and spotted. So, when you find a POI, you can just open up your map and look for the newly added icon, which will give you your exact location without needing to use a GPS or compass. It's a pretty good method to use, especially early on when the goal is to find a camp as quickly as possible. Anyway, now that I know exactly where I am, I looted some scrap metal and began heading south towards the valley safe zone. Along the way, I managed to scoop up a pair of boots from an abandoned campsite, further adding to my outfit. I'm gonna need to find a shirt soon though. Daywalkers aren't meant to be outside in the sunlight without a hoodie, or a heavy lathering of SPF 50. Up at the top of the hill, I found an abandoned radio tower and immediately set to work clearing out the place. Thankfully, there weren't that many zombies around, so I made quick work of the few that were there and got started on looting. This ended up being a huge win for me, as it landed me some more valuables to sell and a backpack. Granted, it's not some late game 50 slot bag, but it's leaps and bounds better than cramming everything in my pants. Not to mention a GPS tracker. To be honest, I have a little over 100 hours in Surrounded. Like I mentioned in the intro, I've 100%ed the game on permadeath and survived 100 days without dying on a permadeath run, but I have never found a GPS tracker on my first day. Equipped with all my new gear, I continued south towards the safe zone. This continued for pretty much the rest of the day, with me stopping at any abandoned camp I passed along the way, looting them for things like cloth, a generator, and another crowbar. During my travels, I reached level 2 and used my lone skill point on the health regen skill, which passively heals you back up to 80% of your max health, as long as you're well fed and not dying of thirst or bathing in the rivers of Chernobyl. I finally reached the Valley Safe Zone camp that evening, well after the sun had set. Once inside, I got to work selling off all the extra valuables I didn't have an immediate use for, including the generator. This, in turn, netted me a little over $350. From there, I used all of the scrap metal I'd snagged and crafted it into some more high-quality metal. Selling all of that brought me up to a total of $428, enough to purchase a pistol and 1 bullet. But, instead of spending all my cash on a one-way ticket to meet God, I opted to chug the stagnant well water nearby and pass out in the abandoned cabin. After waking up the next morning, I left the camp with the goal of hunting some of the nearby deer for breakfast. Now, you may be sitting there and going, "But TGP, you don't have a gun, or a bow, or even a spear. How are you going to pull this off?" Well, may I present to you the good old-fashioned, tried-and-true Michael Vick approach. See, you can kind of just run him down and beat him with a crowbar. PETA hates it, the NFL will turn a blind eye, and there's no arguing with the results. Now that I'm well fed, it's time to get the day started. There's a nearby apartment building that should have some supplies that I can use, and hopefully a weapon that isn't a giant hunk of iron. Just outside said apartment building, I managed to find 2 tents and a wrecked car, so I took one to sleep in and serve as my impromptu storage unit. Alright, time to loot the place. Look, I even used a lunchbox this time. You would not believe the amount of unchecked, under-medicated autists who shit themselves in my last Surroundead video because I didn't grab a lunchbox. And don't worry, I also put a backpack inside a backpack. Did you know you can do that? Guys, you can put a backpack inside a backpack. Alright, this may sound like I'm whining, but on my last 3 Surrounded videos, I have received, and this isn't hyperbole here, over 1,000 comments mentioning either the fact that I missed a lunchbox or didn't put a backpack inside a backpack. So, yes, we all know you could do it. We've all played Tarkov before. Screeching out a 5-paragraph essay about it in the comments doesn't make you interesting, it just makes you annoying. Here, I'll do you one better. Here's a backpack within a backpack within a backpack. Or, a backpack within a backpack within a backpack within a backpack. Now, there is a weapon locker up here, but you need bolt cutters to break it open. Not to worry though, because I found a hunting rifle in the next room. Here's the haul from the apartment. Overall, a pretty solid run, netting me a plethora of backpacks, a hunting rifle, some more clothes, and a ton of sellable items. Back at the safe zone that evening, I sold all of the extra junk, netting me over $1,000. With that cash, I purchased an ACOG sight and a few rounds for the hunting rifle. This was massive for me, because with this hunting rifle, I can take on my first boss. Just to the north lies a mall, but as I approached it, I noticed a ton of corpses and blood on the floor. It looks like a group of bandits tried to beat me here, but were all taken out by the wandering zombies and boss roaming the parking lot. That being said, it's free real estate. Just a shame that it's region locked. But thanks to today's sponsor, ExpressVPN, we don't have to worry about that anymore. Not only does ExpressVPN help protect your online privacy and data, but you can also use it for things like accessing region-locked content. Check this out. All these companies offer different pricing models depending on what country you're accessing them from. So if you wanted to pay, 30% less for a product, all you'd have to do is open up ExpressVPN and connect to a UK server. Congrats, now you can drink tea, eat beans on toast, gross, and watch the US version of The Office. Don't Don't ask why the US version is available in the UK and not in the US. Or better yet, don't even worry about it. Just get ExpressVPN and circumvent the problem entirely. Same with the other shows like Rick and Morty and even movies like Harry Potter. None of which are currently available in the US's Netflix catalog, but all of which are available overseas with the click of a button. Outside of region swapping, ExpressVPN even comes in clutch during your day-to-day. Alright, picture this. You go to Starbucks and connect to their public open Wi-Fi. Only it isn't actually Starbucks. It's just named Starbucks because some neckbeard sitting in a van next to you is redirecting dozens of unsuspecting people just waiting for their coffee and filtering them into his own system where he's stealing all of their bank info because they all just had to use Apple Pay on their phone. Thankfully, ExpressVPN offers best-in-class encryption, and because you're smart enough to use ExpressVPN, not only are you entirely safe from the local neckbeards of the world, but you also got a free coffee because you referred the barista. A true win-win for everyone. The best part of all this, ExpressVPN offers tiered pricing, offering deals for as low as $3.49 per month, with deals ranging all the way up to 73% off. To find out how you can get all of that and up to 4 extra months for free, all you need to do is click the link in the description box below, scan the QR code on screen, or go to expressvpn.com/preds. Thank you to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video, and now... Up at the Palm Beach Mall entrance, I found Paul Dart wailing on a few dead bandits, which reminded me a ton of the rebel troops in that OG Battlefront 2, where they stand over the slain stormtroopers and double tap them with their pistols. I don't know why, it just made me laugh. Anyway, here's the loot from Paul Dart. Not to mention all the extra shit I scraped off the bandits and zombie corpses. With that taken care of, it was onto the mall itself. While each of these shops has a variety of loot to hoard, the big win comes from the rooftop. After spending a few more skill points to unlock the ability to lockpick master safes, I broke into one, looting it for some cash and a credit. From there, I got to work scavenging from the piles of crates lying around before climbing the ladder to reveal the special container specific to the mall. Here's the haul from the mall escapade. Time to go sell a bunch of it. Alright, I'm up to just under 2k. I've got a shotgun, a hunting rifle with an actual scope, and a winter coat in July, shielding poor Scott Malkinson from the sun's harmful rays, while protecting his ginger locks. The only problem with it comes when trying to shoot in first person. The hood kind of blocks pretty much everything, but I guess that's the price we have to pay for not having sunscreen. Now that I've got some actual gear, I figured this would be a great time to take on my first infestation. There's one right next to the safe camp, so I made my way over to the gun store / diner, the most American thing you could have in a game, and got to work clearing out the zombies hanging around it. I feel like, compared to the mall, there were way more zombies here, but that kind of makes sense when you consider the fact that this is an infestation zone. Regardless, I ran up to the roof and funneled most of the zombies up through a small ramp, allowing me to cut them down one at a time instead of being swarmed. So, the infestation. There is always one primary infestation, and then 1 to 3 secondary infestations connecting to the primary. It's worth mentioning that you cannot damage the primary infestation until all of the secondary ones are destroyed. Now, there's a few ways you can go about that. You can smack them with your melee weapons, or throw Molotovs at them. But by far the most efficient way is to take an assault rifle or a semi-auto shotgun and just blast them to hell. When you do damage these secondary infestations though, waves of zombies will begin spawning in to try and stop you. Now, you can stop what you're doing, kill the zombies, and then go back to finish off the infestation in between waves, but to me, it makes much more sense to just finish off the infestation and then retreat to either the rooftop, or if your wife's boyfriend is in the room with you, you can climb on top of a car, preventing the zombies from hitting you. Friendly reminder with this, you can loot each of these secondary infestations. Alright, one more to go. Time to get to work. With both secondary infestations destroyed, I was finally able to target and damage the primary infestation. It has double the health of the secondary ones, but was still easy work for the John Wick special. That being said, the zombie waves this one spawns are much larger than the secondary ones. Not to mention the special boss zombie that comes at the end, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to show that here because I got bent over the rooftop. Thankfully, I'd set my spawn point to the safe zone, but after respawning there, I'm still wearing all my clothes, despite shredding and dropping them. Doesn't really matter though, because it's back to the gun store to try and recover all my lost gear. There it is. And there he is. Now, to just sneak past him and make it to the rooftop before he rips my limbs off and uses them for a jump rope. Look at this guy. What a bum. Anyway, the boss ended up getting stuck between the car and the ramp to the rooftop, allowing me to land several headshots with the hunting rifle before finishing it off with a shotgun. Looting this boss netted me a legendary Barrett 50 cal that I'm excited to never try, along with a few other weapons and attachments. And finally, the primary infestation. While not as good as the undead boss, it still landed me some useful items. Here's the haul from the first infestation. Now time to go sell it all. With the massive influx of cash, I purchased a plate carrier offering 16% armor protection and a better gas mask to survive the irradiated zones. From there, I ran over to a weapons and armor trader and purchased a 40-slot weapon case to store my Barrett and AK inside of. As the sun rose the following morning, I found myself running toward a few POIs in the northeast. Just nearby lies a gas station. Next to said gas station, 2 radiated zones, absolutely loaded with loot. The goal for today is simple. Hit up both radiated zones, and then hopefully find a working vehicle along the road. To kick this process off, I started over at the Patient Zero quarantine zone. It's here where we're introduced to more zombie variants. For starters, you've got the feral hellhounds. They're pretty easy to deal with, and a headshot from the hunting rifle puts them down. Then, you've got radiated zombies. You can tell them apart from the others due to their glowing green eyes, and the fact that they look like how I imagine a Yu-Gi-Oh card tournament smells. Outside of them, you've got the acidic zombies, which have the same style, but red. These ones are the deadliest of the bunch, in my opinion, mainly because their corpses fucking explode on death, which, if you're not wearing a plate carrier, can one-shot you if you're close enough. Heading into the Patient Zero house, you can find an APC to loot, as well as an entire house gutted and replaced with military crates and weapon lockers. All of which have been left behind, for some loot whore like me to steal and hoard for myself. This led to a new backpack, more weapons, and my first keycards, which can be used on military bunkers and late-game POIs. Over at the gas station, I looted a can of gas, hopefully to be used on a car. Further south, you can find a wild nuke resting in the middle of the road. If you want the redacted achievement, you can shoot it from all the way back here, which does this. Unlike the Tier 1 radiation zone of the Patient Zero house, the nuke POI is a Tier 3 radiation zone, which would matter if I hadn't just spent all that cash on a military-grade respirator. I should probably talk about how radiation works in Surroundead. The zone level indicates what type of mask you need to absorb and filter out the radiation, with a Tier 3 zone requiring a military respirator to withstand. This is due to the amount of radiation bleed that comes with each zone, with Tier 1 offering the slowest amount, whereas Tier 3 is the strongest currently. Your respirator quality is vital because it directly correlates to how quickly your filter deteriorates. A regular respirator might have a 0.1 or a 0.01 decay, but a military respirator, like the one I'm wearing, decays at a rate of 0.0074 while offering 99% radiation protection. Even with that 99% though, I'm still bleeding radiation resistance due to being in a tier 3 zone. To add on to that, the radiated zombies will deal both regular damage to you while also depleting your rad resistance with each hit landed. That's enough info dumping for now though. With the nuke zone looted, I followed some gunshots I heard in the distance, only to find a wandering trader out here firing wildly into a few zombies. Apparently no one taught this guy the art of stealth in a zombie apocalypse because he was mauled almost instantly. With the wandering trader being ripped to shreds, I pulled out my frag grenades and lobbed a few over in an attempt to put him out of his misery. Now, sadly, you can't loot the wandering trader, which, while I do get the reasoning behind, still bums me out a little bit. Regardless, I continued down the road, fighting more zombies and discovering another set of apartments, but still no vehicle. With the sun beginning to set, there was only time for one more location. I remembered there used to be a spot next to the mall where vehicles could spawn in, so I made my way back to the front of the mall, where I found a respawned Paul Dart waiting for me to take him down again. Instead of doing that though, I took on a small horde of zombies guarding a downed heli. While I did scoop up a new hunting rifle, I wasn't able to find a vehicle. I found a fucking black bear though. 2, actually. Thankfully, I was still rocking the Benelli M4, so after spamming heals, I quickly put the duo down. Back at the safe zone that evening, I made some more high-quality metal, which I combined with tool sets to craft 2 vehicle repair kits. I also swapped out the shotgun for the Black Ops MP5 I looted from the undead boss during my first infestation. With the MP5 in hand, I set off to go raid a nearby city. In the process of running over, though, I got to witness a friendly scavenger getting mauled by a few zombies before looting his pockets for $50. His friends are clearly devastated. Anyway, welcome to Whitewood. I found the special crate before even heading into the city, but outside of that, I took a few minutes to sit on the hill and fire shots into the zombie sprinters patrolling the city streets. This, in turn, led to roughly a dozen zombies sprinting up towards me since I'm not using a suppressor, but that's why I brought the MP5. Inside Whitewood, I targeted the special crate first, looting it for a Valkyrie drum mag, a legendary rifle that I don't have yet. Outside of that, the hospital itself is an absolute gold mine when it comes to loot. Each floor has 2 to 3 first aid kits and shelves, all holding medical supplies, water purification tablets, and charcoal tablets. Those last 2 are the real moneymakers though. Charcoal tablets sell for $20 a piece, with the purification tablets selling for $30 a piece, and you can often find several in each crate. Hell, the water purification tablets alone netted me over $1,200 just from the hospital. That being said, there's still an entire city to loot, including all the zombies trying to rip my face off. Not to mention the infestation taking control of the city. With no real clear goal at this point, I decided to start here, and began destroying both of these secondary infestations, clearing wave after wave of zombies in the process. For the primary infestation, I swapped the hunting rifle out for the shotgun, relying on close quarters combat with the shotgun, machete, and revolver to deal with the zombie hordes, and then swapping over to the MP5 to deal with the boss. Primary infestation was the big concession here this time, netting me another Coyote backpack and a Black Ops plate carrier with more slots and 20% protection compared to my old plate carrier's 16. With the city officially cleared, it was back on the road again in search of a vehicle. One thing I noticed here was the fact that it's snowing now, which wasn't in the game the last time I played. And not just snowing, but the snow actually covers the trees and the landscape, which I wasn't expecting. It's a welcome change from just dealing with constant thunderstorms. There's a bridge in the distance as well, but just before it, a trader. Specifically, a vehicle trader. Sadly, I can't afford any of the vehicles here at the moment, but that should change once I sell all my loot from Whitewood. I'll focus on that later though, because check out that smoke in the distance. Time to go find out what's causing it. Turns out, bandits. It's a whole bandit camp just waiting to be looted. For this fight, I relied almost entirely on the hunting rifle, sniping the bandit rushers and assault team from afar. These guys were loaded though. Just from looting the bandit boss and the remnants of the assault team, I walked away with multiple legendary weapons and accessories for said legendary weapons. Here's the haul. 2 Cerberuses, 1 Valkyrie, a second drum mag for said Valkyrie, several sights and suppressors, and the Deadeye revolver. Naturally, it felt only fitting that I swap out the hunting rifle and MP5 for the new toys. So, equipped with these new weapons, I began making my way west, towards the Evergiven, or if it's trademarked, Gever-Iven. This is another safe camp, much like the Valley Safe Zone, except it's on a crashed ship stuck in the sand of a canal. You can find pretty much every other trader here like the Valley Safe Zone, with the exception of the Wandering Trader. So, after selling some more of my items and finding myself up to around 4K with close to a dozen credits burning a hole in my pocket, I decided to partake in my favorite activity, gambling. Specifically, on loot boxes available from the Black Market Trader. He's holding a Tier 2 metal crate and a Tier 3 polymer crate for 1K. Opening that crate reveals another Deadeye pistol, meaning I just spent $1,000 cash on a $250 revolver. But that's the price you pay for loot boxes. Thankfully, I still had some legendary accessories and a spare Cerberus to sell, which helped recoup some of those losses. While on the ship though, I realized I'd been neglecting my skill points, with 10 available to redeem. With those 10, I purchased the combat roll, something I'd been sorely missing in combat, as well as the parkour ability. That wasn't all though, because I still had 5 points to spend. While I could have used the cheat death perk, I figured these points could be better spent on doubling my crit chance with critical hitter, as well as boosting explosive damage with the demolition expert skill. With all my points spent, It's time to go try out my new weapons and skills, starting with a random group of bandits waiting for me just outside the camp. Once they'd been taken care of, I followed the road south until I came across this factory. It's swarming with zombies both inside and out, though I will say, 2 legendary weapons equipped with suppressors kinda made this a wash. At least until I set foot inside. With the factory seemingly cleared, I got to work looting the place. It's chock full of items that can be used to build my own camp, including generators, light fixtures, and fencing. It also landed me a fishing pole, which is by far the easiest method to stockpile an infinite amount of food and cash. There's a reason I didn't just purchase the damn thing when I first made it to Valley Safe Zone. Once the factory was looted, I took a moment to rest on the rooftop, only to look out in the distance and see this. That's an ice cream truck. But instead of ice cream, it sells, I don't know, the best weapons and items in the entire fucking game. The trade-off is that the ice cream truck moves around with each new session. It's got roughly a dozen spawn points throughout the entire map, and every time you relog, it moves to a different one, giving it more of a wandering trader feel that I really like. Check it out though, he's selling a 76 slot backpack, grenade launcher, 4 legendary weapons, 2 epic plate carriers, 4 level 2 keycards, and my personal favorite, a horde beacon, which spawns in waves of zombies and bosses to fight, with the difficulty ramping up after each completed wave. Sadly, I don't have enough credits to buy any of this stuff right now, but that'll change in a little bit. Until then, I wanted to take a little time to build out a base of my own. And what better way to kick off the journey than by finding my first vehicle of the playthrough, an armored pickup truck. After using both repair kits to fully restore it, along with a few cans of gas for good measure, it was finally time to take this bad boy for a spin. I'm gonna be honest, finding the truck made me completely forget about building a base camp of my own, and actually even ended up selling all of the tents and equipment to a wandering trader that I came across while whipping the truck around. After spending a few minutes driving around the southern portion of the map though, I decided to hit up my favorite location, the subway system. It's dark, loaded with zombies, and what I believe to be the best location to farm out keycards. You can enter the subway in a variety of ways, with access points located in Lawrence Creek, Grain Valley, Elwood, and the factory entrance that I just took. It doesn't really matter which entrance you take, sure they're all a little different, but all of the tunnels connect through different passageways that we're about to explore. So, the subway. Like I mentioned, it's covered in zombies, and more importantly, it's pitch black, requiring the use of either a high-quality flashlight or night vision goggles, or both. With that equipment, you can find things like safes hidden within the subway system. These can net you a few credits and some cash. While not the focus, I'm never going to pass up an opportunity for more credits. While exploring this portion of the subway, I managed to loot a new machete before finding the passage to Lawrence Creek. This obviously leads to a different portion of these subway tunnels, and unlocks the true area I was hoping to find myself in. This portion of the map, aside from being like 5 times larger than the factory entrance, is home to both a military crate and a ton of briefcases hidden within the rail cars. These briefcases hold keycards that I'll need to access late-game POIs. While hunting for said briefcases, I rounded a corner to see a mini-boss hanging out down here. Normally, this would be pretty intimidating, but considering I'm holding a Valkyrie with 2 80-round drum mags, It was one of the easier boss fights I've encountered so far. Cue some more fighting, and a few more emergency crates to loot, and I found myself staring down the passage to Grain Valley, as well as the end of this portion of the subway. Grain Valley is very similar to the factory entrance, where it's really just a straight line with a boarding platform leading up to the surface. There aren't any briefcases here, but at the far end of the railway, you can find another passage to Elwood. So, how far have we traveled now that we've bounced around through different tunnels? Well, for reference, here's where we are now, and here's where we started at with the factory entrance. We have traversed the entire map just by taking the passageways through the subway. It makes for a fantastic way to traverse large portions of the map without a vehicle relatively quickly, with the big downside being that my armored truck is, still waiting for me all the way across the map at the factory entrance. So, after looting all of these subway rail carts and anything else I could find along the way, I began the journey back to the factory entrance. In total, I managed to loot 6 level 0 and 6 level 1 keycards, both of which could be used at a variety of bunker entrances. Before heading out again though, I sold more items to the traders of the Evergiven, taking all their cash and bringing me up to over 7k, which I then spent 2k on 2 more credits, bringing me up to 13. Alright, got a bit of cash, a few keycards, some legendary weapons, and a dream. Time to actually put some of that to use. First up, the lab. It's over in the center of the map, just south of the observatory. But like the observatory, it's heavily guarded with some coyote mercenaries that need to be dealt with. Now, you can sit back and pick them off from range, but I find it to be a lot more enjoyable to rush in and draw their fire. Regardless, the loot from Coyote soldiers is far beyond what you'd ever get from a regular bandit group. Like, sure, the camp netted me some legendary weapons, but the Coyote Lieutenant landed me a 66-slot backpack, a better helmet, and an Intel laptop which is used to spawn and create custom events on the world. It's also relatively common to find level 2 keycards on these guys, but unfortunately, I wasn't lucky enough to roll one this time. Because of that, I can't access the lab, so instead of clearing out this place, I figured why not head north and hit up the observatory. The observatory is, a top 3 POI for me, personally. To start, you've got to fight your way up this big-ass incline infested with zombies. When you finally make it to the top, there's a boss, the Changed Astronomer, just waiting to fuck up your day. Now that being said, if you have, a Valkyrie with a suppressor along with a Molotov, you can lob that bad boy up there, let it burn out the Changed Astronomer, hope he walks over a landmine, and then light him up. Suppressors are easily the most OP item in the game though, because just watch. You can just stand behind the boss and the enemies and mow everyone down without them even flinching or drawing aggro. With the boss and nearby zombie threat dealt with, it's time to actually push into the observatory. Just be on the lookout for all the landmines lying around in the parking lot. While the parking lot does have an APC for you to loot, the real gear can be found inside and on the rooftop. For example, the military crate on the rooftop netted me a level 3 keycard. On the ground floor, I managed to find another legendary weapon, this time the Crusher, a legendary AK that I swapped in for the Valkyrie. Up in the actual observatory room, though, I found a special high-tier crate, which for me held a few more weapons, including the legendary Dark Machete. And to cap off a lucrative haul, I opened a military crate in that same room to find the Silence of the Lambs mask. This legendary respirator has a filter usage per second of 0.0009, compared to the 0.0062 of my current mask, making this one, if nothing else, 7 times higher quality than the military rare mask. As I left the observatory, I looked up onto the hills to see some sandbags with a few coyote soldiers hiding behind them, so naturally, I did what everyone tends to do in this situation. With the coyote soldiers dealt with and the observatory officially looted, I hopped back into the truck and headed east towards a radiated bunker. I managed to get about 2/3 of the way there before coming across a random bandit camp. They lit up the truck as I drove by, forcing me to pull over and take them on. This turned out to be a blessing in disguise, though, as their camp held more keycards, cash, and credits. Welcome to FOB Bravo, a Tier 3 radiated zone, home to dozens of radiated zombies, and another boss. Time to get to work. After narrowly escaping death and bringing down Colonel Solomon, I checked his loot to find a better jacket and a 35% protection plate carrier, more than doubling my current protections while losing about 8 slots in inventory space. With the new plate carrier, I pushed back into the camp, clearing out all the zombies hanging around inside the walls. Once they'd been dealt with, I looted the military crates and APC outside, finding multiple keycards and some more ammo. Inside the military tents, I found and looted a briefcase with more keycards, as well as finding a radio where soldiers can be heard discussing fallback plans before a plane crashes, causing a massive explosion. Now, if I'm correct with this, the plane crash is referencing the downed military cargo plane over at Elwood, which, funny enough, in the tent next to that camp, you can find another radio mentioning the Coyote mercenary soldiers initially. It doesn't really mean much for any playthrough, but it's just a little bit of backstory and some extra lore that's added into the game that I find really enjoyable. Anyway, while the first door of the bunker here only requires a level 1 keycard, the second vault door requires a level 2 keycard, meaning I'm at a dead end once again. Finding myself stuck in the same cycle, I figured a great way to up my chances at more keycards would be to clear another infestation. Initially, this seemed like a great idea. I could gun down a few hundred zombies, kill a couple bosses, and loot all the infestations for more high-tier armor. But none of that could have prepared me for the good old-fashioned Left 4 Dead 2 charge and slam through a building wall, leaving me blinded and unable to move. Once pinned, it was only a matter of time before the inevitable happened. At this point, though, I feel like I'd kind of reached the apex of what this character could be. Like, sure, I could go hit up the oil rig or some other cities, but all I would really be doing was looking for more weapons of the same tier that I already owned. As it stands, I already have arguably the best guns in the game, the best mask by far, one of, if not the highest protection plate carriers, one of the best backpacks, not to mention all of the epic tiered ones inside said backpack, an armored truck with one of the highest storage slots in the game compared to the other vehicles, and either the best or second best melee weapon, depending on where you personally rank the katana. So, with all that gear, I was determined to put it to the test, and naturally, I did the only logical thing I could think of, and cranked the zombie spawns up to max. With 10 times the normal zombie pop and 5 times the boss spawns, I made my way into Elwood, gunning down everything in my path. After a few minutes of that, I found the subway entrance and pushed down into the darkness. But it still felt like there should be more, like they weren't all spawned in yet. The only conclusion I could draw was that the spawns were split between the subway and streets above. So after clearing out the subway tunnel beneath Elwood, I returned to the surface and made my way over to everyone's favorite POI, hitting some sick jumps along the way. There it is. Time to head on over and see how quickly I can crash the game. Well, that was an experience. This still feels like I'm not actually spawning in the 10 times pop, so this may be bugged in the current version. For reference, here's what Elwood looked like during my 100% permadeath run when I was farming out the 6,000 kills achievement. Regardless, I think it's safe to say this is about as far as I can take this character. Thank you all so much for watching. I have a lot of love for Surroundead, especially considering it's a solo-developed project being sold for a modest $12 on Steam. It's a game I've been following for a few years now, and with the big 0.8 upgrade just around the corner bringing a combat overhaul, new bunkers, POIs, and items, I'm excited to see how the game continues to develop. With that though, I'm gonna get out of here. Until next time, I appreciate you all, go call a loved one, and thanks for stopping by.